Today we're going to be talking about Unit 1, Notes 3, which we're talking about forms of equations. Okay, so let's start by looking at slope-intercept form. So to start off with slope-intercept form, let's write that form down. And the form is y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, so we're going to look at what each of those mean here in a second, but it's important that you know which one is which because you'll be using this a lot. You probably use it a lot when you were graphing in 8th grade. So first, let's take a look at the slope. When we're talking about slope, we're talking about rise over runs. We're talking about how much we're going up and down, and then how much we're going over. You could also look at that as change in x over change in y. Or sorry, change in y over change in x. Y is always on top, x is on the bottom when we're talking about slope. And we actually do have a formula that we use for slope-intercept form, and that formula is right here. That's this y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now you'll remember that you use the 2 points to calculate the slope. If this isn't something you're familiar with, we're going to practice it a little bit today, but you can also go, if you go into my Bridges Unit 1, there's a video on just calculating the slope that you can use to study if you need to. I have also attached it to this video if you're watching it on a PC. Or a Mac. It just won't show up on your iPad. It'll show up if you're on a computer. Let's take a look at the y-intercept. So if you're looking at the y-intercept, that's the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So that's the value where x is equal to 0. So we're looking at where we're crossing the y-axis. Now remember, the y-axis is that axis that is up and down. The next question is, when are we using this? Well, we use this to graph linear equations. That is the most productive use of the slope-intercept form, is to graph lines, and that's what we're going to be using it in class today. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of a look at this. So let's take a look at these first problems, and they're kind of stuck up there. Let's do that. Okay, so all it's asking us is to write an equation in slope-intercept form for each graph. So there's two things that I need to find right now. I need to find my slope. And I need to find my y-intercept. Well, my y-intercept is really easy to find because I'm just going to look at where it crosses the y-axis. Okay, so it crosses the y-axis right here. Okay, and I notice at that point that x is equal to 0, then my y is negative 2. That's hard to see. So my slope then is, my y-intercept is negative 2. Okay, now we need to calculate my slope. So I want to figure out how many I go up to get from here all the way up to here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start at this point right here, and I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now, so I went up 6 over 4. Whenever you go up, it's positive. Whenever you go right, it's positive. Whenever you go down, it's negative. Whenever you go left, it's negative. So 6 over 4 is a fraction that I can reduce. I can divide both of those by 2, and that's going to give me a fraction of 3/2. I call that kind of the triangle method. Let's say you don't like the triangle method. You could use the fact that you have 2 points, this point and this point, and use that slope formula. So we have x1, y1, x2, y2, and you can calculate out that slope. So this is just another way you can find the slope. If you like what I just did previously, that's fine too. So you could do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that gives you a negative 6 divided by a negative 4. Those become positive, so you get 6 over 4, and that's exactly what we got up there. Okay, so that is all we're going to do for that one. Now let's take a look at number 2. So for number 2, we want to find our y-intercept. Now this time it doesn't label it for us, but I can see that it's crossing the y-axis right there. And I'm going to call that point, I know my x is 0, and I'm going up 1 on the y-axis. So I need to find my slope and my y-intercept. Well, my y-intercept is 1. We're crossing the axis at 1. So now we need to figure out how many points we're going from one point to the next. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. Oops. So from here I'm going down 1, 2, and over 1, 2, 3. Remember, down means negative, so I'm going down 2 and right 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put both of these in slope-intercept form. I've done the hard part, so now I just have to plug it in. Remember that slope-intercept form is y is equal to mx plus b. So for number 1, when we plug that into slope form, I'm going to plug in 3/2 for x, and I'm going to plug in my b. I want you to go ahead and see if you can take those two and see if you can put them into slope-intercept form. Next, let's take a look at point-slope form. So for point-slope form, we have y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So x1, y1 is going to be a point on that line. Okay, so to write linear equations given a point and a slope or 2 points, that's when we're going to use these. Now, I also tell students to kind of look at this as like a puzzle. Okay, so I write out a puzzle because sometimes that's easier for students to look at it this way as well. So you could look at point-slope form as just plugging in the points, but I say you can also look at it as a puzzle. So in this part, you're going to put the opposite of the y-coordinate. Now you're going to be adding or subtracting it. It's not going to be just y3. It should be y plus 3 or y minus 3. Here you're going to put your slope. And last but not least, here you're going to put the opposite of the x-coordinate. So that's just another way to look at point-slope form. Again, there is a video just on point-slope form in my Bridges folder if that helps you as well. Okay, so let's take a look at how we're going to do some of these. It says to write the equation of the line in point-slope form that passes through the given points. Well, in order for us to do that, we need to first calculate the slope. So that's where we're going to take that formula from the original slope-intercept form. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So it helps me out to label the points, x1, y1, x2, y2. And here's the great thing about it. It doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. If you are consistent, it doesn't matter which point is 1 and which point is 2 as long as they're in the same point. So let's go ahead and calculate this out. So we have y2 minus y1. Now remember, when you do minus a minus, it becomes plus a positive over x2 minus x1. So here I'm going to get 16 divided by 4, and that's equal to 4. Well, phew, that was a lot of work. Okay, well, let's see if we can go ahead and finish this problem out, okay? Now we have to actually put it into point-slope form. Well, here's the nice thing, is they already gave us a point. So I'm just going to pick this first point, and I'm going to use that to put it in point-slope form. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to set up my puzzle. In here, I'm going to put my slope, which is 4. Here, I'm going to put the opposite of my x-coordinate. Well, here we have a positive 4, so I'm going to write it as minus 4. And in here, I want the opposite of my y-coordinate. Well, it's minus 12, so I'm going to write it as plus 12. So that right here is the point-slope form for that equation. Let's go ahead and let's do the slope for number 4. So for number 4, you're going to do y2, so label your points, x1, y1, that looks like a y, x2, y2. So you have y2 minus y1, get to class, x2 minus x1. And remember, negative, negative becomes plus, plus. So then that's going to give you 9 over 6. That fraction, they're both divisible by 3, so that's going to reduce to 3/2. What I would like you to do right now is to use that kind of point-slope puzzle that I'm talking about and fill it in. So you can use either point. It doesn't matter which one. You pick the one that works best for you. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and let's figure out standard form. So for standard form, we have ax plus by is equal to c, and a, b, and c are all constants. What you need to know about this form is that there are no slopes or y-intercepts in this form. So we have to kind of create that eventually. We're going to talk about how we do that here later on, and especially on your worksheet. This note sheet has a lot of information, so that's why I have extra videos if you need them. So this is mainly used to model situations given 2 variables. So let's kind of take a look at what that's going to look like. Taking a look at this first word problem. It says write an equation in standard form for the situations given. So again, if you don't have time to write some of the stuff down, don't hesitate to pause the video. So let's take a look at number 5. We have $10 to buy carrots. Okay, so I'm going to say $10 for my carrots and tomatoes for a salad. So I'm going to call carrots X and tomatoes Y. So tomatoes Y cost $2 per pound, and carrots X cost $1.25 per pound. So ultimately, I want to spend $10. Okay, so for every X carrot that I buy, it's going to cost me $1.25. For every Y tomato that I buy, it's going to cost me $2. And that's it. That's all the setup you have to do. Okay, so next, let's take a look at number 6. So we're moving into a new house. You can carry 56 pounds at one time. One box of book weighs 18 pounds, and a box of clothing weighs 10 pounds. I'm going to let box of books be X, and then box of clothing Y be pounds. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have you guys finish this one up on your own. So know that the box of books X is 18, so we can carry a total of 56. So I'm going to get it almost all the way set up for you. Okay, and I want you to finish up the rest of that. Okay, let's take a look at number 7 and number 8, which you do not have on your worksheet, so we're going to go ahead and skip those. I'm going to add another slide. Apparently, I didn't change the note sheet. So let's take a look at number 7 on your guys'. So for number 7, whoops. So for number 7, you guys have 2x minus 3y plus 4 is equal to 5. And we want to put those in standard form. So to put them in standard form, what we need to do is you need to have your x and your y's on one side. So we want to have them completely on one side. So all I need to do is get rid of this 4. So to do that, I'm just going to subtract 4 from both sides. So then I get 2x minus 3y is equal to 1. So that right there is your final answer. I want you to go ahead and try number 8 on your own. So you're going to do number 8 on your own, and I want you to figure out if you can get it into standard form off of there. Okay, so let's go ahead and, one second please. Okay, so let's take a look at this last multiple choice problem here. So for this last multiple choice problem, we want to match it with its graph. So here for number 9, I see this plus 5 here. That tells me that the y-intercept is 5. Okay, so we're crossing the y-axis at 5. So I'm going to look at A, B, and C. Well, this crosses the y-axis at -1. That's not what I want. This crosses the y-axis at -5. That's not what I want. This crosses the y-axis at 5. Let's just check to make sure the slope is right. So here it says the slope is -6. Now keep in mind that -6 can be the same as -6/1. So we're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/1. So C is my answer for this one. Now for number 10, I see that I have a y-intercept of -5. So I'm crossing the y-axis at -5. And then I'm going up 2/1, up 2/1. So then that slope works, so this has to be B. Since it's multiple choice, I don't need to figure out A. I already know that 11 has to be A. So this has concluded your note video today. Please make sure you take that Schoology quiz once you're done. Thanks for listening.